guys to be here. I think this is a great thing you guys are doing, and I know that people are going to benefit from your wisdom and from your knowledge. So thank you again for agreeing to do this. We have Marisa, Carden, and Dani as our panel here today. I put together some questions that I'm going to ask them, and that they had some time to think about ahead of time to answer. But if any of you parents have questions, if you guys want to pipe in and ask a question, please feel free to do so. I just started this off. This is a conversation starter. So this is a very conversational and sort of, just nothing formal. If you have something burning, a question burning, please jump in and let us know and ask those questions. Okay, is that good with you, Marisa and Carden and Dani? All right, so let's start with Marisa. Marisa, do you want to introduce yourself? Just kind of give a background, a little bit on your FSHD journey, sort of when you were diagnosed, if it's in your family, where you're from, and kind of what you're doing now.
Sure, yeah, I'll attempt to be brief. Hi, my name is Marisa Spain. I am from Michigan. I live in Michigan. My FSHD journey has been lifelong. I've always known I've had it. I'm 27 now. It runs in my family. I can trace it up to at least like my great-great-grandmother. So growing up, like I had early onset, so I always had affected it in my upper body, but then my lower body started to become affected when I hit my teenage years around 13 or 14. I wore AFO braces through high school. And then when I moved post my undergraduate degree, I started using a scooter, and I've been a full-time wheelchair user for about 4 years now. My degrees are all in biology and like wildlife sciences, but after I graduated from those, I realized that the field was not really accessible for a wheelchair user. I'm sure we'll get into that later. So I completely switched career fields, and I now work in disability rights and disability advocacy. I work for the city of Detroit in the Office of Disability Affairs. So that's been a really neat journey moving into that field. And I also this year started a YouTube channel and an accompanying Instagram account called Disabled in Nature, where I talk about my experience as a person with a disability online and my love of being outdoors. Covered it.
Thank you, Marisa. Marisa has also agreed to help the parent chapter by helping us out with some social media and putting some videos and stuff like that together for us to showcase the early onset to researchers in pharmaceuticals. So we thank her very much for helping us in that venture as well. We're going to keep her quite busy. So thank you so much. Nice to meet you, Chris, again, or Marisa. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here tonight. Carden, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. And hi, everyone. I'm Carden Wyckoff, based out of Atlanta. I'm 30, and for context, a similar timeline as to diagnoses and, when I was wearing AFOs and using a wheelchair as Marisa. So I'm actually a spontaneous mutation, so no familial history. And so when I showed symptoms as early as 4, and I was formally diagnosed, I think up in Rochester, New York in 2001. I think I was about 8 or 9 years old. And then through high school, similarly to Marisa, my upper body was affected earlier. And then in high school, started affecting my walking. And then in college, I started wearing AFOs. And then I started using a scooter outside just as soon as I graduated college, after tripping and falling a lot, literally every day, and just being so cautious of where I stepped and how I stepped and where I went. It was very limiting. And then I started using a wheelchair full time when I was 23. So been using a wheelchair for about 7 years now. And what I do full time, I'm a certified web accessibility specialist. So I do digital accessibility and I work at SalesForce, and I've been there basically since out of college. So about 8 years. Thank you. Over to Dani.
Nice, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Dani. I live in Wilmington, North Carolina. I moved here about 7 years ago from Northern Virginia, and before that, I was born and adopted from Santiago, Chile, so I don't really have any history of family stuff I know anything about. I got diagnosed in, I think, 2001 as well. I was 12. I'm 35. I got into the wheelchair at 27, but I only use it outside of my house. Inside of my house, I use a walker, but I also fall more inside the house still. And like the falls have definitely gotten way worse. I went to public school for most of my educational career. And then I did private high school, private liberal arts college, and I got a couple random certificates in like paralegal, medical billing and coding, and I'm getting a ADA coordinator certificate now. And I got my master's during COVID in strategic communication at American University. So I have a ton of pieces of very expensive paper that say that I know things, but I work at a comedy club and and a local owned women's like small business boutique. So I'm not using my degrees at all. So that's fun. And yeah, I plan on hopefully doing like stuff with my ADA or ADA coordinator certificate. But until then, I really like what I'm doing. I work in the box office at the comedy club every weekend. And I also like work at a store, like it's a record and music kind of store. So it's actually kind of awesome. So I don't know if I'm upset about not using my degrees or if I'm fine with it.
Sounds fun. So, wow, you guys are all very accomplished young ladies, so that's good to know. It's encouraging for me as a parent of someone with FSHD that, you know, despite the fact that you have it, you can go out there and accomplish your goals and reach your dreams. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Marissa, I want to talk to you first about your school experience. So how did your diagnosis affect that in school? Like, so you were diagnosed fairly young through middle school, high school, and as far as academics, getting around the school, things like that, social interactions, did having FSHD affect that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start with like accommodations and stuff that I got. So, in like when I can remember, like in elementary school, my mom handled it mostly. I know, and I only know like what was done basically secondhand from what she's told me that she did. So, it was mostly with regards to like gym class, like PE. I know she had conversations with all my gym teachers about like, hey, she has this thing and she, you know, might not be able to throw the basketball like you want her to, or do the cartwheels, or things like that. And then when I moved into middle school, actually, gym was my favorite class. I was a very physically active kid. And then when I moved to middle school, she had me pulled out of PE, so I didn't have to do it as a requirement. She did that without talking to me, which I would have had go differently. And so instead of doing PE, I took like a different elective credit. So like I was in classes with like 7th and 8th graders a lot, and they were like, why are you here? You're a 6th grader. I don't understand. Or like I took 2 semesters of art instead of 1, things like that. And then when I moved into high school, still same thing. I didn't take the PE credits, and then I got an accommodation to have an extra set of textbooks at home, so I didn't have to carry the heavy books to and from school. Yeah, those are kind of really the only accommodations I ever remember getting. Socially, I don't think it impacted my friendships very much. I had lots of very close friendships that I'm still very much friends with to this day. I think for me, it was more the internal, like how I felt when I had to be separated from my friends and not get the experiences that they had, like when my mom took me out of gym class. That was something that was kind of isolating. Or like I was in marching band in high school, and obviously I couldn't march. I was part of the pit percussion. And during like parades, or like when we went to Disney World when I was a junior in high school, there were a lot of things that like I could participate in, but then a lot of things that I had to like, be separated from the group for and like stand on the sidelines. Or like when we were in Disney World, like my parents came to like pick me up on the day that they were doing the parade, and I just like watched from the sidelines. So socially, I think for me that was the most difficult part, was that kind of disconnection. And yeah.
So how did you deal with that? Like the disconnection? I know as a parent, I see my kids kind of standing, I have seen them on the sidelines kind of watching quite a bit. So how did your parents help you deal with that, or how did you deal with it?
I don't really know if I did deal with it, and I think that's probably part of why it was so hard for me. And I don't know if my parents really dealt with it with me. It was kind of growing up, it was there was a lot of internalized ableism in my family, and we were very much the kind that like, with regards to, and it's strange because it was regards to only the FSHD. Everything else, my parents and my family growing up was the most inclusive, welcoming environment you could imagine. But when it came to the FSHD and the losing of abilities for both me and my dad, it was kind of like, don't talk about it. We're going to sweep it under the rug. So it wasn't really talked about. And I think that added so much to the isolation that I felt. And so I think as far as how we did deal with it, we didn't. How I wish it would have been dealt with, I wish that my mom once said to me that they did that because they didn't want me to grow up with this as part of my identity. And she told me that a couple of years ago. And after I had gone through this whole, like awakening and reckoning of being proud of my disability and myself. And that really hurt, because I was like, well, if you had, things might have been a lot easier for me emotionally. So what I wish would have happened was maybe they could have found me role models, introduced me to a community, gotten me some therapy, because it's a lot of grief to go through as a kid. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Carden or Dani, do you have anything to add?
I have to agree with
regard?
everything you said.
You guys had similar experiences?
Oh yeah, I had the double textbook. I stopped doing gym. There was like no Facebook groups. My dad called the FSHD Society, and I can't remember the names of the two people, but he would spend hours on the phone with them, just hours talking about like different medicines and things like that. And this was in the early 2000s. And then like I remember just getting bullied a lot about like just my smile, or like, why do you laugh like that, why do you walk like that? And the thing is, I didn't even know how to like say the whole facioscapular humeral muscular dystrophy thing. So I didn't know what to say. I went from being very athletic, soccer, lacrosse, ballet, karate, like all of this shit. And now I like completely stopped, and I had to think of some excuse. And I was on swim team and I got plantar's warts. So I had to have a surgery. And I was like, well, that's an easy thing. I'm not doing gym because I'm on crutches. There's the visible thing. So I also agree with Marisa when it comes to like, should have had therapy. I wish there were role models. I got sent to a camp, but like there was an ulterior motive there, because there were two other girls there that have FSHD, but I didn't know, kind of. And like my dad was like, oh, surprise, someone over there has it. And so one sister was like still able to run, and you could just kind of see it in her face. And the other sister was like disabled. And so I was just like having this internal, like between the ages of like 13 and like 18, like what the fuck. So yeah, that was my fun. It was a lot. Therapy would have been really good. So
And if your parents would have talked to you about it more,
my
you think that
parents
would
were
help?
busy making money, and I appreciate that now because they provide me with everything. Oh, I need a $61,000 van for my $77,000 wheelchair. Boom, I got it. I need like a shower, all my doors, everything. They built this house from the bottom down, like with me in mind, with a mother-in-law suite. So although I got sent to like camp for the whole summer, and like I had to deal with this FSHD like stuff on my own. Like I went to lacrosse camp knowing that I had FSHD, but I had to deal with people that didn't have the internet to like try to explain to them. And so, you know, when someone doesn't understand something, they usually turn to being mean or making fun of or something like that. So I had to deal with a lot of that mostly.
And Carden, how about you? Did you ever felt socially isolated growing up, and how did you deal with that? And how did your parents help you deal with it, or peers, teachers, or any other adults?
Oh yeah, definitely a lot of social isolation. And to Dani and Marissa's point, you know, the three of us are, you know, between the ages of 27 and 35. We are of that generation where Facebook didn't exist until we were in high school. Look, you know, put a tag on it. So the Gen Z now and the generation that's coming up in school, they have access to technology. They have TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all the other apps. I don't know what they use now, but there's so much access to information. It's like you can just type in the letters FSHD and you'll see like 1,000 reels and TikToks on it, right? So there's a sense of community now that people can get access to information more and feel more included and just feel safe in that, oh, there's someone else that looks like me. Because when I was diagnosed, it was Carol Perez, Dan Perez, that was the first contact that we had with the FSHD Society. And the only other, the person that I was connected with was like a 60-year-old who had FSHD. And so me being 9 years old, trying to relate to a 60-year-old, like that didn't work. So as a kid, feeling, and then also on top of that, being a spontaneous genetic mutation. So I didn't have any familial history. There was no one in my school that had FSHD. I didn't go to any camps. And so having those conversations, I think my parents did the best that they could at the time. And, but they were very supportive, and I thank them for that every day. I mean, I think my mom is the one person that, you know, would tell me, you know, we're going to navigate this together. I heard that all the time, right? With every hurdle, it was, okay, we're going to work through this together because we're both going at this as if we've never done this before. So I think, you know, for any parents now, I would strongly encourage you to just reassure your children, especially if there's no other kids in class that have FSHD, or they don't have anyone else that is their age and has FSHD. It's just reassuring them and constantly reassuring them. It's so nice to hear that. Therapy would have been nice too, I'm sure. It's expensive though, but yeah, that's possible.
So did you guys do sort of all the normal things in high school, like go to the dances and do all the things, or did you kind of sit on the sidelines for that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
I did it all pretty much.
Yeah, I feel like we did it all.
I did.
I know it was always like really weird about, because like, I mean, you could tell that I walked with a gait, and so I certainly didn't ever get asked out to the dance or anything. And so there's just that isolation on top of that, you know, as a preteen, as a teenager, and it's like, oh, well, you don't get asked to the homecoming dance, or you don't get asked to that because you are disabled. And so, and I don't think that's just an FSHD specific thing. I just think that's physical disabilities in general, is that there's bias towards that and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, Carden, when you were first diagnosed with FSHD, how did your parents tell you? How did they explain it to you?
Well, I think I always kind of knew that something was off. It was things like blowing up birthday candles and like I could never do a sit up in PE class. And so at a very young age, like I knew there was something clearly different, that I couldn't keep up with my peers in PE class, etc. Um, so it was a lot of going from doctor to doctor, for at least that was my remembering of it. I just remember going to many doctors and them trying to like figure out what was wrong with me. And my parents were always told that, you're the crazy helicopter mom, that there's nothing wrong with your child. So I don't know exactly how many doctors we went through, but I do remember when we finally did find a doctor that was able to diagnose it, it was like immediately she knew exactly what it was because that was her research. And I mean, I think at the time of the actual diagnosis, I just remember being in like a really big conference room up in Rochester, New York, and it was like, well, this is actually really nice to know what I have. And that way I can navigate the world, knowing my diagnosis and knowing that, I can get support uh, from schools because you are now considered a person with a disability and you are a protected class. So you do have access to rights and protections there. So
Here's a quick, I must watch the
I'm-
webinar.
I'm always really a strong proponent of having, like, I would always say to parents, please get your children tested, and have them be diagnosed, either positive or negative, but having that diagnosis at such a young age was probably the best thing that I could have ever asked for, because I would have never wanted to be in high school and not receive services like getting an extra set of textbooks and having a hall pass that gave me extra time to walk to class. And, that carried on from middle school all the way through college, and having access to those services. And if you don't have the diagnosis, then you can't get access to those services. So, or they're done under the table and not formally, right? And it's going to be per teacher basis.
Right.
So I think, overall, in terms of the diagnosis, I felt glad to know what I had, but it was like, what is this? Like, I have no idea what this is going to look like. I have no one else around me to tell me what this is going to look like. And so, yeah, there was so much uncertainty.
Thank you. Marissa and Dani, I would like for you to answer sort of that same question too, to parents who say that they don't want, like maybe they know that their kid has FSH, or they have a strong inkling that they have it. What would you say to those parents that are hesitant to reveal that diagnosis to their children?
That's weird. I mean, like, why wouldn't you? I guess it's just it's like, yeah, I don't know. I can't seem to wrap my mind around why someone wouldn't tell their. I mean, I think the most difficult conversation I had with my parents was about being adopted, because I looked so much like them. And I was like, y'all lying. But when it comes to, we were in a room together with Dr. Robert Kurtzke in Fairfax County. He's one of like the best neurologists in Virginia and stuff. And he was like, oh, I know what you have. The same as what the Carden said. And I went and got the blood test, and I literally had no idea what was going on. So they seemed upset, and I was like, okay, well, we know, I'll go tell my best friends, and that's that. So it really, again, not with Facebook groups, Instagrams, TikTok, all of that. Google, you can find out so much now, but when you didn't have access to that, it was very different of how you processed it.
I can understand the hesitation, because it's a fear of the unknown, right? It's, you don't know, and it can be a scary thing looking into the future and thinking, especially if you're in the mindset of this is going to, take so much from my child. I don't want to tell them that and then scare them. I think that could probably easily explain having a hesitation, but I will say that one is all how you phrase it to them. It's all in your outlook and your perspective. If it's like Carden said, that it was so reassuring to hear, we're going to go through this together, it's going to be okay. I think that is probably the best way you could go about it. I would also say that the not talking about it and the taboo of it all for me was really the worst part. Like when I was losing things, that going through emotions that people don't usually experience until they're in their 60s, 70s. And as a kid or as a teenager, that just adds such a complicated layer on top of everything when you're like, how are you supposed to figure out who you are and find yourself when the goalposts keep moving? So I would definitely think that having a frank and genuine or honest but positive conversation with your kid about their diagnosis and try and empower them would probably be best. I would never advise anyone to not talk about it and to not tell them.
Because I don't know if you guys know this, there are quite a few kids that the parents know that they have it, or they suspect they have it, and they are not getting their kids diagnosed. And I'm sure you're in some of the Facebook groups where people are adults or near adults, and then they find out, and that's kind of a harsh reality, and some of them have a very strong reaction to that. So I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on it. Was there any aspect of it that was particularly hard for your parents to talk with you about, that was a difficult conversation, or it just kind of evolved and you kind of took it as it came?
My parents' own anxiety gave them so much, like me having to go down the stairs and the ice and stuff like that and falling and being alone, and then all of a sudden seeing my father get so upset at the thought of me just being like laid out in the cold dark, like you just let your mind just go to the craziest scenarios, but also like it is a reality. So when it comes to parental anxiety, that's something I definitely tell my dad now, even now, like, is this your anxiety that you're discussing with me, or is it actually something like I need to be worrying about? Like, do you want to add this extra stress because you're so stressed about thinking about something that you have no control over? Like, he would love it if I would do some kind of cyber security job from home, and I would rather jump off of a bridge than do that. So we have very differing opinions, but we can also talk about it. And like, I can tell him to get out if he's really stressing me out. I was like, because he'll start to like spiral. He's like, what are you going to do when we're no longer alive? Like, who are you going to rely on? And then what happens if you can't pay your bills, if you can't do it right now? You should have a job that has like X, Y, and Z, and a 401k, and then the Roth IRA, and your Matthew Asian fund, and the stocks and bonds, and all this stuff. Like, no, shut up. I need to focus on like things that I can control right now. And sometimes you have to be a little harsh with people because it takes them a little longer to change their behaviors. But I learned that like, if I need to walk away, roll away, whatever, to get out of that situation and then come back and visit it, then okay. But like, you have to separate your stress, your stressor, just your agitation from theirs, and keep that separate, because that's something that definitely, like, he'll come in and drop a bomb on me just randomly, like, hey, have you thought about like when we die, where you're going to go, what you're going to do with your cat, and then just leave. And I'm like, what? No, I did not think about that. Like, but should I? No. So we have my will, we have all of our stuff, we have all of our ADA stuff, all of that's ready to go. Like, we've driven to Greensboro to talk to lawyers, trust lawyers, disability trust lawyers, like everything is like locked in. They thought of every single scenario of us on a plane dying together, one being unconscious, like, you have to go through all of that. It is awful and terrible, by the way, to deal with trusts and like trying to protect your child when it comes to when my parents die, I still get to be on their insurance because they worked for the government, and the government says if you have a child with a disability, they can stay on your insurance after you die. So I'm like very, very lucky, very, very privileged in that sense. And I wish like my parents could somehow share that knowledge, but it was trial and error, and they have definitely turned gray a lot faster dealing with Medicare, SSDI, all of that shit. So yeah, I'm done.
So,
I would-
so
I would
Carden,
echo
go ahead.
that.
Go
Well, I
ahead.
just add on to that is like, as a parent, I mean, I'm not a parent, but if you are a parent, like managing your own projections onto your child of like, oh, well, I don't want my child to get diagnosed for the fear of them feeling different or being treated differently than their peers. They are different. Like we are different. And we, whether you think it or not, like we know it because we feel that it's just like the way that people look at us differently, just a little, like a few seconds longer, just the way that we lift our arms or blink our eyes or whatever it is, the way
Yeah.
we take our step. It's like we know that we're different because we can feel it from others. So it's like, why would you want to not get your child diagnosed officially and formally so that they can get the services to be successful in school and have a little bit extra help and take a little bit of the stress off from their daily lives, because we're so calculated in every step that we take and every action that because it's all about preserving and not fatiguing too quickly and preserving our energy. And it's like, I am so thankful that I had an extra set of textbooks in every one of my classes and an extra set of textbooks at home. And I had a disabled parking pass when I was in high school. And, all of these things that I was given because I had a diagnosis. So I will die on that hill.
Right. And also I'm hearing you say,
Well,
even if you're not, severely affected, things are just a little bit off, and it's nice to know why, right? For your own
Exactly.
mental health, right? So what kind of coping mechanisms have you guys developed to learn through your adolescence, especially because that's a tough time for everybody, regardless of their physical ability. It's a tough time for everyone. So what kind of strategies or coping mechanisms did you guys sort of learn to adapt to deal with things physically and emotionally as you were, progressing physically with the
I'm
disease?
pretty sure I did like all the bad ones. I like smoked weed. I ate the worst food. I didn't drink. I was not a drinker because not at all. But like if I wanted, I did try to get like a personal trainer one time, but they never did get it. Like I always ended up like stopping and quitting when it came to like the physical aspect of like coping with things. Some people just say go for a walk around the block. It's like, okay, no. So I would try, I guess now as an adult I have much better coping mechanisms, like to get out of a panic attack, you count the sounds that you hear, the things that you smell, like you breathe. Like I didn't have any of those. There was no like rubbing your chakra or whatever to like calm down. So I would scream, I would cry. I was definitely an object thrower. If I found something to throw at you to get you away from me, like when I would fall, my parents were like, why weren't you wearing socks? And I was like, what the fuck does that have to do with me being on the ground right now? Like that is not helping the situation. So I would get more and more upset. And then they would be like, why are you getting upset? We're trying to help you. And then I like couldn't speak and I would just start crying even harder. And then that's when the objects, toothpaste, like shoe, like just get away from me type stuff. So it took a really long time to get to here, like where I'll write something down, I'll do a meditation thing on my app, I'll pet my satanic cat if she's not trying to take food from me. But like, I'll go outside and I'll play with my dog now. Whereas before it'd be like, oh, I'll go smoke a joint, or I'll go hang out with my friends and be a little like menace in Vienna, Virginia, which is really not that menacing at all. It's like a very white and boring town. Anyway, but yeah, so I've done the good and the bad, but I'm on the good now. But you can teach your kids the good now, but my parents weren't around that often to be like, hey, I know what you're doing. Ah. They tried, but no.
So it sounds like you didn't always choose the most healthy coping
Oh, hell no, no, I
skills.
had to use
Is there
this
any
one.
healthy coping skills that Carden or Marissa that you found? I mean, I think a lot of people, again, when you're teenagers, you just go through things and, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
specifically to deal with the FSHD that helped you.
I never did anything quite wild like that. I was definitely more of a suffer in silence type, which I also don't recommend. But I think as I've gotten older, for me, the best coping strategy is community. I think just when I was 19, I connected with a friend who used a wheelchair. She had cerebral palsy, and she, after I connected with her, my isolation faded away, and so did most of the bad feelings that I had towards my disability. So, and like Carden was saying, there's so much opportunity to connect with people online now. I know that some people's kids might be too young for social media or things like that, but that's why I started sharing my journey online, because I was thinking back to when I felt so isolated and alone as a teenager and a young adult, thinking like, man, wouldn't it have been great to have seen someone be able to connect with. So the first video on my YouTube channel is actually called Being the Person I Needed When I Was Younger. So yeah, that would be the coping strategy I would offer, would be find community, find peers, find people that get it. They don't need to be people with FSHD. They can be people with similar experiences.
I know as a parent, it helps me to like be involved in this chapter and to try and work toward bringing treatments and cures to, the non-ambulatory and the pediatric population, because it feels like I'm doing something, like I'm not as helpless. Do you guys feel like that as well? The more you get involved, the more empowered you feel?
Absolutely, yeah.
Carden, do you have anything to add to this about the coping skills or being involved in a community?
Yeah, I think I was definitely a suffer in silence. I think I still do that a lot. I probably should go get therapy. But I think yeah, I did a lot of things to find workarounds due to my deteriorating physical health. And I just didn't tell people what I did to do it. And I just was like, I got it done. Like, you don't have to worry about how I did it. I just did it without anyone's help. And yeah, there were other things that I would do, like even in high school. We had a really big campus in high school, and I was in the magnet program. So the magnet program, I had classes like in one building, and then all the way to had to go to the other end of the other building. So it was a lot of walking in high school. And so I just remember I would like park my car at the front of the building and then drive it to the back for the remaining end of the day. And I think the school administrator saw what I was doing, and I think they talked about it with me once, but I just told them this is what I need to do. And they were like, okay, fine. But yeah, those are like things that there's like a suffer in silence. You don't really tell people about it because just you have to do it to survive, essentially.
Yeah.
My
And
dad got me a golf cart for college so that I would go to class when it would rain and snow. He was like, "You're going to class," and I was like, "Shit!" So I did.
yeah.
It even had like a little rain thing. Drive my golf cart from my dorm room to like the science building and psych building and stuff like that. But I would also take it to parties. So it was multifunctional.
Oh, heck yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I think because I felt so isolated growing up, being the only, even like where I grew up, there just weren't a lot of disabled kids around me. And so at least that community I was never introduced to that community. So I didn't really like get connected into the disability community really until like college. And that was way too long or way too, yeah, it was just too far to not get really connected with people. Because I wasn't in like, I didn't ever go to like a special education class or anything. Like I was still in regular classes. So they separate the disabled kids. But I think I really longed for that sense of community. And that's why in high school, I think it was like I think freshman year or sophomore year, I created a Facebook group, the FSHD teens and young adults. And it was me and Kristen Duquette at the time and one other person, I don't remember now, but we started that group and it just slowly started to grow, and now Gen Z takes it over. So
Academically, was it hard to keep up? I know like my son, he's taken some college classes now. He just graduated from high school, but it just takes him through high school. It took him a long time to do his work. Like he would do hours and hours and hours of homework because it just takes a lot longer to do all that stuff. Academically, did you struggle because of the physical, like just getting fatigued and things like that when you're going through school or college?
No.
No, I would just take naps.
Yes, you become an expert at naps. I think if anything for me, maybe it was the opposite. Like I didn't have anything like I was losing my ability to go out and do physical things. So I just kind of like poured myself into my, like building up my mind and my strength. I actually graduated high school as a college sophomore. I graduated my undergrad when I was 19. So yeah, I think, but I was also, when I was doing that, like things weren't taking as long as like they do now. I was still walking, even though maybe I shouldn't have been. And things were easier back then. But yeah, I think that, and I was also raised with kind of the mindset of like, it was more implicit than explicit, but like if you build your mind, you'll always be able to work, because once the physical goes away, if you have
So I would think that'd be another reason to have this discussion with your children about the disease and the progression of it, that so they can sort of plan ahead for their future careers and stuff, so that they're not planning on doing something super physical. Did that, knowing that you had the disease, did it help shape what career? I know Dani, you've got some, but you got some fallback positions going on, right?
No, but like when I got out of college, I went straight as an applied behavioral analysis therapist for children and adults with autism. And I got my hair ripped out. I got pissed on. I got punched in the face. I literally deteriorated in 3 years. I went from an AFO to a walker to a manual wheelchair. But I loved my job. That was the thing. Like my dad and I, as I said, argue about this. Like I was like, I need to love what I do. I can't do something that I don't like. And he's like, Danielle, it's a job. You want to go and get your little nails done, then you have to have money to do that. And I'm like, okay, well then I won't get my little nails done, and I'll go work somewhere where I'm like happy, where I enjoy going to work, where like, so that's just our difference in mindset. But like I was on the path to become a board certified behavior analyst, but then everything shifted in like a summer. I moved, I changed my career, I changed my school, I changed everything to try to accommodate my disability instead of accommodating like kind of what would bring me inner peace. So
what if there's anything that, is there anything that you wish you would have done differently, if knowing what you know now? I think everybody can answer that question, but
I guess I would.
FSHD related, like if you would have known it,
The job thing, that one job that like took me out, I definitely would have not gone as hard. I'm still glad that I did it because I learned so much about people and like the mind and like, disability in general. It was an amazing job. It really was. But I think I would. Yeah,
if you'd have known like what a toll it would have taken on you physically, you wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Like I would go home at 6 p.m. and I would just immediately go to bed and sleep the whole night. I was that tired. So I guess I would rethink how much I would give of myself even though I loved it so much and I loved the kids and the students and stuff like that.
What about you, Carden and Marissa? Is there anything that you wish you would have done differently if you knowing the disease progression now?
If I had known everything that I know now, I would have taken a completely different career path. Or at least I would have explored things other than what I did. So like I mentioned earlier, we didn't really talk about FSHD or the progression or what symptoms we're experiencing. You know, me and my dad were like losing abilities at the same time, and we never talked about it. And so growing up, I had like science and technology was pushed a lot. I don't want to say pushed. I know my parents are going to watch this. I don't want to say pushed. They fostered in me and my brother a great sense of love for the STEM. And so like my dad's an engineer, my brother's an engineer, I married an engineer, and I have 2 degrees in biology. So I think if I knew everything that I know now, I think I would have maybe explored the different side of me as a person who is someone that loves to talk to people and is fascinated by like the social aspects of, you know, like society and disability and how relationships work and things like that. While I did love all my classes in college about birds, it didn't end up being useful for me because once I got, you know, my career path was slowly shaped by my slowly declining abilities. But ultimately I wasn't able to continue because you can't be a field biologist in a wheelchair. And if anyone finds one, please introduce them to me because I'd love to meet them. But yeah, if I knew everything I knew now.
Like a tank tires, those tank tire things, or would that scare the birds away?
Track chairs.
Yeah.
You know, as with everything, the problem is how do you transport them?
You gotta get you a truck, girl.
And how do you pay for them? They're expensive.
I'll find you sugar person.
But even then, you know, there's, I'm sure the 2 of you have
Insurance and all this stuff. But yeah, you
I'm
deserve
sure you
to be with the birds.
They have a lot of those at parks. I'm gonna go test a bunch of those out.
National parks. Disabled people can get into national parks for free if you sign up through.
Yeah, I have one of those passes.
So.
Yeah, that's actually my passion where I want my like professional life to go is working to improve accessibility of parks and outdoor recreation spaces. So now as an adult, I'm merging the 2. So you know, get back. I wouldn't have changed anything because I don't believe in regrets because it would change and you end up where you need to be, I think. So
yep.
No regrets. Do you have anything to add to that?
Not really. Just, you know, I similar thing. I don't think I regret it. I did a major that I don't use now. I was poultry science and environmental science and biology, and I loved that. I loved learning about it, but I'm not a biologist now. So I mean, I thought I wanted to go and find a cure for FSHD and be a biologist or researcher and et cetera, et cetera. And then I got really interested in like alternative medicines and naturopathy and, you know, and then I ended up in technology. So I think as a kid, you know, you're just going to follow, you know, where the wind takes you, and you just are going to enjoy taking classes that you enjoy taking.
So are there any parents that have any questions right now? I want to give you guys an opportunity before we're almost out of time. I just want to end with advice that you would give for any teens or young children or parents that are raising teens and young adults, or teens or fixing to be young adults. But before I do that, are there any other questions from anybody that you have of these 3 fascinating ladies?
Sorry.
Okay. Now,
don't be shy.
What's everyone's opinion on treatment cure? Are you hopeful? That's from Vera.
Yeah, I would say I'm hopeful, but I'm more into like stopping the decline. I don't exactly need to go back to being the amazing athlete that I was. But like, you know, I would like the deterioration. If there's something that I could take every single day that just stopped the muscle atrophy, then I'm that. But I'm also fine with it continuing. I know that sounds so weird, just because I do know I have a very like strong safety net. Like it would take a lot to like rock my fear of my life turning in a different direction. So having a good safety net for your children, I guess.
So none of you are in trials or anything, or shouldn't be in any treatment trials?
Nope.
Yeah, no.
No.
I think I would definitely agree with what Dani said. Like, I would take a treatment if it came tomorrow. Stopping the progression would be fantastic. Gaining back a little bit of function, you know, I wouldn't say no to that either. But I also think that I'm at peace and I'm fine with who I am and what my abilities are. And I think that the challenges that are most bothersome to me are ones that are not unique to FSHD. They're issues that are systemic in society that all disabled people face. So I think I would love it if we could, with our full chest, advocate for both treatments and cures, and to make society more accessible and inclusive. That would be my dream.
Carden, what's your thought on treatments and cures?
Bring on the drugs. Yeah, no, I'm very hopeful. I think Mark Stone is a very inspirational leader who really infuses a lot of hope into the community. At least I feel that. And yeah, depending on what that treatment looks like. And it would be wonderful to get my right hand function back. So but as far as like running and marathons and stuff again, like I don't know, either way, shape or form, I'm not like,
yeah, people focus a lot
I
on
like do a binge watch marathon on TV. That is my kind of marathon.
yeah.
I think people focus a lot on losing the ability to walk and like using a wheelchair and stuff, but I feel like for me, I would 100% take abled upper body over abled lower body any day of the week. I too am losing function in my right arm rather rapidly, and
You gotta still slap people, you know.
My left hand still works.
Okay, so final question, ladies. Best advice that you would give to someone growing up with FSHD, say someone younger, so a teen or maybe a young adult, and a parent. So what's your best advice? And maybe that's too much. What's your best advice to give a young child, teen, young adult living with FSHD? What's the best advice you have from your experience? Marisa, you want to go first?
Sure. I would say give yourself space to feel whatever it is that you're feeling about your loss of abilities or your diagnosis or your kid's diagnosis or watching them lose abilities. Like, this is a hard thing and it comes with a lot of grief. So I'd say hold space for yourself to have that. But then also, you know, it's a complex thing. So hold space for that, but also like be optimistic. This isn't a death sentence. It doesn't mean that your kid's life isn't going to be full and happy and wonderful, and make sure they know they're going to achieve great things no matter what happens.
Okay, thank you. Dani, you have some advice for some young folks growing up with FSHD?
I guess for the kids, depending on the age and how you can explain it, but like comparison is the thief of joy. And I somehow explaining to your kids that even the typical children are different, like whether you can see it or not. And then as a parent, being like, in in a year, in 5 years, is this going to matter? Do I need to put my energy into this? Like, what could I be doing for my child that can make them feel safe in the future? Is it like, is it trying to find every single, like, something that helps them like right in the moment, and or helps them feel better in the moment? Just try to remember that in a certain amount of time, it almost won't matter. Like, yes, stay and remain in the present, but like know that this moment is not going to last. So for the parents, yeah, kids comparison, no good. Parents, try to stay in the moment with your kids, not too far in the future.
Pardon?
Wow, hard to follow both of those. I'm trying to think of what else to say. Yeah, both of those are wonderful, wonderfully said. I would probably say you're not alone. There's an incredible community that has been built, filled with all different age ranges. Wasn't that case, 20 years ago when we were navigating this situation. So use that to your advantage. And then I think for the parents, it's don't let the fear of your own internalized anxiety and whatnot get in the way of ensuring that your child has the support and services that are available to them through school or the city or the state or whatever it is, jurisdiction, and give them, explore those with your teachers and your school counselors, because there is so much available to them to be successful and not feel so alone.
Yes,
Well,
that's good.
It is good. Kristen, do you have any questions or anything to add before we let these ladies go?
No, enjoyed hearing your stories and your advice. So thank you very much for the insights and the inspiration that as parents that they have the future ahead of them. So thank you.
Of course.
Yeah.
I hope someday we can all meet at like a conference, and instead of through our little screen.
There is a Connect conference in Denver. Did you guys go to any?
Oh my God, talk about drugs, Carden.
So I don't know if any of you guys are planning on going to that. The FSHD Connects in Denver in June.
Oh, when is it?
It's
June?
June.
Oh,
I
nice.
don't know the exact date, but I
It'd be
can
cool if it was
send it
World
to you.
FSHD Day. That'd be cool.
I think it's not on that day. I think it's the week after, maybe. Last time it was, but I have the dates. I can email them to you. I don't have them in front of me. It's June 14th, I think, or something around that time. But it'd be nice to meet you guys face to face for
Yeah.
sure. And also, you guys are so accomplished and you have all this biology background, and we're always looking for people with biology backgrounds to help us out, because we really are fighting. Our kids are very affected. They're very severely affected, and we really are fighting hard to get them into some treatments and trials to try and reverse or stop the progression with our kids. So if we reach out to you, I know she's volunteering her time and energy with her social media and stuff like that, but we could always use help. And if we just have, maybe some teens or young adults, like my son just turned 18, he's pretty isolated. Same thing, he doesn't know a lot of people that have a disability, and he's a little stuck on what he wants to do, to reach out and just kind of talk. Hopefully I can use you guys now that we've sort of met to help us out in those endeavors, if you guys are willing. I know you're all busy with your careers and things, but
Tell them to follow me on Instagram. My DMs are open.
okay.
Yeah. And then explore the FSHD teens and young adults. I mean, I'm 30. I'm happy to talk to an 18-year-old, but they also are like, you don't get me because you're not 18. And I'm like, okay. And I
Right.
get that. But yeah, there are other teens that may want to connect with as well.
Okay.
Halloween runs that group, is from what I remember.
Yeah, Heloise was in the Gen Z, she's in college now too, but she's pretty busy, but this, I have to say, has been one of my most enjoyable meetings I've ever had. I love the three of you guys, and you guys all have different perspectives, and you bring your own personalities, and it just goes to show, yeah, we may share FSHD, but we're all our own people, we can all accomplish our own things, and it's just inspiring, and it was really fun to talk to you ladies. So thank you so much for spending your evening with us. I appreciate it, and
Happy
hopefully.
holidays too.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas. And thank you
And
for
Happy New
joining
Year.
us. So, yeah, and Happy New Year. So closely to the holidays. I know everybody's busy. So thank you all for attending. This will be up on the website before too long on the YouTube channel. So thank you again so much. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Be
you.
safe, everyone.
Well,
Thank you.